This is CBC Here and Now.
You feel comfortable and safe in your home, and now you hear that some nefarious individuals are breaking in, not only breaking in, but injuring the occupants.
Following two violent home invasions, police issue a chilling warning: don't answer the door to strangers.
The cleanup in Kilbride continues again today.
No timeline overall, but different pieces of work will be done and completed as soon as possible. Some are smaller jobs than others. Mooney Crescent would be the biggest job, of course.
We'll have an update from the city coming up.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. The hunt for three male suspects continues tonight as police search for the individuals behind a pair of violent home invasions in St. John's yesterday. In a rare move, police are warning residents to remain on high alert. Here and Now's Terry Roberts has our top story.
The images are blurry, the people in them hard to recognize. But these are the pictures police circulated today of two of the men they believe took part in a series of crimes that has shaken the city. A large police operation is underway in St. John's and beyond following two violent home invasions. Police were called to Beaumont Street in the city centre around 7:50 yesterday evening to a home occupied by a man and woman in their 30s. It's believed two young males forced their way inside that home. Police say there was a confrontation and the man was stabbed and seriously injured. As they fled, the attackers took the keys to the homeowner's 2012 Honda Civic, but that was not the end of their crime spree. Police tell us the attackers then made their way here to Monders Lane, a distance of about 8 kilometers from Beaumont Street. It's here where three males, not two, but three, forced their way into a home without knocking. A home occupied by a man and a woman, ages 88 and 90. The attackers made off with cash and jewelry, and the elderly couple were taken to hospital to be treated for minor injuries. Reaction from area residents today was one of shock.
I mean, you feel comfortable and safe in your home, and now you hear that some nefarious individuals are breaking in, not only breaking in, but injuring the occupants. Gives you pause, doesn't it?
The stolen Honda Civic was later found, abandoned in the rear parking lot of Coker's Meadow Plaza off Torbay Road around 3 o'clock this morning. Police say these home invasions were random, unprovoked, a rarity in the city.
It's something that, of course, brings that level of destruction of our security and just really creates that type of environment where you're trying to seek, what do I do now?
As the hunt continues, people are urged to secure their properties. Police also have this sobering warning.
So what we're asking our community to do is if you have someone knocking on your door that you do not recognize, or you can't see who it is, or they're unexpected, we don't want you to answer the door. We want to make sure your doors are locked.
Tonight, the search for those suspects continues. Officers are looking for any clues to the whereabouts of the men and their motives.
Our hearts are with the victims and their families as the heinous act that they've just been brought through.
It's rather disconcerting, to say the least, that that type of crime would happen, in close proximity to your own house.
Residents are being asked to report any suspicious activity and forward along any video or photographs that might help with the search. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the city of St. John's is still in cleanup mode following a downpour that flooded rivers, basements, and even washed away roads. While the work continues in the capital city, nearby Mount Pearl and Paradise were also dealing with close to 200 millimeters of rain, but a lot less work to do. Here and Now's Jeremy Eaton has that story.
It's been a stressful number of hours for residents here on Mooney Crescent in Kilbride, but the cleanup is well underway, as you can see here behind me. But a number of homes here have been damaged due to flooding. Now, the extent of that is not known, but the city says it's working to get this area cleaned up and back to normal as quick as possible.
No timeline overall, but different pieces of work will be done and completed as soon as possible. Some are smaller jobs than others. Mooney Crescent would be the biggest job, of course.
Rocks from beneath the road washed their way into about half a dozen homes here on the lower end of Mooney Crescent. Restoration companies were kept busy today drying flooded basements. Crews doing their best to turn this road into something people can drive on. Lots of rain to blame.
Total huge flood that came off the hillside and it came right down the hill. what can you do?
Most roads in St. John's have reopened, but the city's website has the full list. Most trails have also reopened, but not this one just yet.
A lot of the trails, water has receded and they're passable, but certainly the section from Kingsbridge Road up to Portugal Cove Road is still closed. That is still being assessed for damage. Bidgoods Park has a couple of sections, Barrings Park has a couple of sections that are open.
In nearby Mount Pearl, the rain came hard.
Fared pretty well with it all. You know, there was some isolated flooding and some erosion along the Waterford River Valley, but otherwise we're in good shape. 24 hours after the peak at the river, everything seems to have subsided.
While the city got drenched over the past few days, Mount Pearl workers remained on strike, but that didn't have much of an impact on the cleanup, according to the mayor.
The city is focused on bargaining issues and making sure our workers remain safe at the picket line while the strike is ongoing. We had our management staff monitoring all the roadways, the trailways, the head walls for the bridges, as well as the detention ponds, starting Sunday evening and all the way through Monday.
While the town of Paradise took a beating from Earl's rain, there was no real damage reported there. So while the work will continue here to clean everything up, St. John's is still adding up the price tag left behind by the post-tropical storm.
This is work that we're undertaking as soon as we can and trying to get everything back in order as soon as possible, and we are still determining costs.
Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Time for a check of your weather forecast. Ryan Snodden in for Ashley again tonight. Thankfully, yes, a drier day across eastern Newfoundland as the cleanup continues, and you can see the remnants of Earl slowly but surely making their way out into the mid-Atlantic now. And the focus now shifts to our next system, which is rolling its way up into eastern Canada as we speak. Cold front, and that cold front is really going to be bringing quite a shift in temperatures as we work our way through the next couple of days as well, especially for you folks in Labrador City, where we also have a rainfall warning in effect with this system coming in. Rainfall amounts 40 to 80, possibly even as much as 90 millimeters of rain with this system for Labrador City Wabash. Looks like this will be the bullseye as that front kind of stalls out over the next day or so. Here is how it's going to play out. So the showers begin this evening, periods of rain, steadier, even a rumble of thunder as we work our way throughout the day on Wednesday. That also stretches up to Nain. Note the increasing clouds for Happy Valley Goose Bay, and as we work our way across the island, looking at a pretty quiet day for St. John's, thankfully. Maybe even a little bit of sunshine in the mix tomorrow, some showers, and then eventually some steadier periods of rain starting to track their way into southwestern parts of Newfoundland throughout the later stages of Wednesday. A band of rain Wednesday night in through Thursday when we'll see some lingering showers across most of the province. And yes, those are wet flurries mixing in across western parts of Labrador Thursday night in through Friday. A sign that we are well into September. Your full forecast is coming up in just a few minutes. Stokesy?
Thanks so much, Ryan. I haven't heard that nickname in ages. Well, now to some healthcare news. The province says it's working on a few changes to help with staffing shortages in healthcare. It plans to give registered nurses the power to prescribe some medications and allow nurses to work in multiple jurisdictions. Now, this comes as emergency rooms in St. John's are dealing with double capacity and a shortage of staff. Today, the opposition parties criticized the suggestion that people should go to a family doctor instead of the ER.
The health authorities are telling people in the smaller clinics that in case of emergency, go into St. John's. Well, then at least there was still a backup plan. Now we're hearing that don't even come to St. John's because we can't address your health needs. So what are you telling to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador? What we're saying here, this is not just a rural Newfoundland and Labrador recruitment issue. This is a Newfoundland and Labrador health crisis issue. So we're in a very desperate situation when our major tertiary care facility that handles, most of our dramatic emergency needs are telling people stay away.
That can't be the solution. That can't be the solution. Don't go here and check out this number. The government has got to come to the point, and the Minister of Health and the Premier. We've got to find a more permanent solution. This can't go on. This has been going on for most of the summer. Enough is enough.
Well, a rare case involving charges of human trafficking was called at provincial court in St. John's this morning. Dominic Delisle is the accused. He was also charged with benefiting from the provision of sexual services. Delisle remained in custody after a brief court appearance. He's due back before a judge later this month. Delisle has a long criminal history in Quebec with past convictions for weapons offenses and forcing women into prostitution. In national news, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced new measures intended to help Canadians deal with the increased cost of living. It includes the first step in a national dental care program, starting with funding for some children under 12. Trudeau laid out the three parts of the plan at a caucus meeting in New Brunswick.
The first element of our plan is to deliver relief to millions of Canadians by doubling the GST tax credit for 6 months. Second, as promised earlier this year, we're moving forward on dental care. We aim to have that program started for those under 18, persons with disabilities, and seniors by the end of 2023, with the full program completed by 2025. Thirdly, the federal government will also provide a one-time $500 top-up to the Canada Housing Benefit Program.
Trudeau says the measures will be among the first pieces of legislation the government introduces when Parliament resumes next Monday. Meanwhile, Trudeau made another announcement today that there will be a federal holiday for this coming Monday, the day of the Queen's funeral.
We have also chosen to move forward with a federal holiday. On Monday, we will be working with the provinces and the territories to try and see that we're aligned on this. There are still a few details to be worked out.
Federal employees and workers in federally regulated industries will be eligible for the Monday holiday, and so will provincial employees in this province. Less than an hour ago, government announced that Monday will be declared a day of mourning in Newfoundland and Labrador. Provincial and federal government offices, schools, and other public entities will be closed to coincide with the Queen's state funeral in London, but businesses do not have to close their doors.
Often loons will see roadways like this long stretch of road between Shahajit and Happy Valley Goose Bay, and I think assume that it's a body of water. And
keeping the family tradition alive. Coming up after Ryan's weather, Joya Montevecchi shares her story about rescuing a loon in Labrador.
Time for a check of your weather forecast, and it is going to be, yes, a 5-day forecast with lots of changes, and certainly changes towards the cooler end of things as we work our way towards the weekend, especially for you folks in Labrador. Let's show you, well, as you can see, your eastern highs today across eastern parts of Canada and North America. Look at this frontal boundary here. Moosonee was at 18 earlier, now down to 12 degrees. Churchill at 8, and that is that cooler air that's filtering in on the other side of this front, which is going to be wandering its way eastward as we roll our way through the next couple of days. That front is also going to be bringing with it some wet weather, especially Labrador City, where we have a rainfall warning in effect. One more tip of the cap there to Earl as the remnants of Earl continues to track off to the east. Just wanted to show you that, and you can see how the outer bands of rain now working their way well east of the island, thankfully. And what we're looking at is, yes, this next front, which is bringing up some wet weather, tracking into the Maritimes, and yes, into Labrador City beginning tonight with some showers and some heavy periods of rain, especially tomorrow into tomorrow night. And this is where we could top as much as 80 to 90 millimeters of rain, hence the rainfall warning from the Gander Weather Office and giving everybody the heads up. Also some very strong winds with this, gusting to 60 tomorrow, then gusting upwards of 70 to even 80 kilometers per hour from the north tomorrow night. That's going to be drawing in that cooler air that will, yes, be bringing with it the chance for some flakes mixing in as that colder air really starts to move in. So picking things up for tomorrow morning, and you can see where overnight tonight and in through tomorrow morning that rain will arrive in Labrador City. Pretty quiet tonight across the rest of the region. We are going to be looking at that rain edging into southern parts, southwestern parts of the island by the time we get to later tomorrow. But yeah, tonight is quiet. Temperatures ranging from around 8 to 12 across the island. Northwest winds still lingering along the northeast coast from Gander, Bonavista, and into St. John's. Pretty quiet in most of Labrador, but those rains again into Labrador City. Rewinding to 7 a.m. because I want to show you this again. Note how Corner Brook and down through the Stephenville area, rather, increasing clouds, some shower chances increasing as we work our way throughout the afternoon. Corner Brook, yeah, I did put the rain icon on here, but it's late afternoon, near supper time, near this time tomorrow, that will really run the chance of seeing some of those showers creeping in. St. John's, lingering possibility of some drizzle or an isolated shower tomorrow. Should see some sunshine in the mix, at least with that northwest wind. Temperatures along the northeast coast tomorrow, 14, 15, and 16 degrees. We're into the 20s. Grand Falls winds are back towards Corner Brook, as you can see, 25 degrees. And that wet weather really starting to ramp up through Labrador City. 30 to 40 millimeters throughout the day tomorrow, with those winds in from the north gusting to 60, and then the winds really strengthening for tomorrow night in through Thursday morning. That's when we're talking about those gusts potentially upwards of 70 to 80 kilometers per hour. That wet snow starting to mix in. Not looking at anything in the way of accumulation, but certainly some flakes mixing in is a sign of the times. Note for Thursday across the island, we're going to be seeing wet weather and then a bit of a dry punch coming in for Thursday afternoon into Thursday evening. So should see some sunshine breaking through, especially for the Avalon and the northeast coast into central parts of the island. Some showers rolling into the southwest coast of the island as we work our way throughout the day. We're going to be talking about temperatures pretty mild, a warm push coming in on the other side of this system with temperatures 18 to 21, even 22 degrees. Gander towards Terra Nova on Thursday afternoon. But note the backside of this system will be funneling in those temperatures in the mid-single digits, and we are looking at those flakes to continue to mix in through Friday morning, and that colder air will be working its way across the island as we work our way into the weekend, where we're talking about some low double digits. So yeah, Thursday certainly the peak of the warmth for St. John's and eastern parts. Shower chances for Friday and throughout the weekend, with temperatures in around the 12 to 13 degree mark. For central parts of the island, again, peaking temperature-wise Thursday. The roller coaster goes down into the mid-teens by the time we get to the Saturday-Sunday time period. Similar story for the west coast. Thursday and Friday, both wetter days with that onshore flow. It's just going to be cloudy and damp. Looking at temperatures again into the 13 degree range for the weekend. Eastern Labrador, quiet tomorrow. You're getting into that wetter weather for Thursday and in through Friday, as temperatures will drop into the single digits for highs on Friday, recovering as we work our way throughout the weekend. And for Western Labrador, certainly wet tomorrow, as we said, tomorrow night. Rain tapers off on Thursday, mixing with flurries Thursday night in through Friday, recovering as we work our way throughout the weekend. That is your forecast to now.
Well, the phrase like father, like daughter certainly applies to this next story about an animal rescue along a Labrador highway. And the person at the heart of it all joins me now from Happy Valley Goose Bay. Joya Montevecchi, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Carolyn. Happy to be here with you.
Well, regular viewers may recognize your last name. We've interviewed your father, Bill Montevecchi, many times on the show. He's a seabird biologist at MUN, and most recently we spoke with him about the surge in avian flu in the province. But today we wanted to connect with you about a different seabird story, one with a happy ending. You recently came across a loon sitting in the middle of a highway. Can you tell me what happened?
Sure. Yeah. So my coworker and I were just on the way to work last week on Highway 520. So this all took place in just outside Sept, about a kilometer or so outside of that community. We just happened upon a juvenile loon that was just kind of sitting in the middle of the highway. There were a couple of commuters that had pulled over already, and I think they were on the phone with wildlife when we arrived there. And the general consensus was that this bird looked injured. The bird was attempting to fly, but couldn't fly. And its legs were splayed out sort of behind it. And so, of course, I think that common sense would tell you this is an injured bird and we shouldn't approach it. But the thing that a lot of people don't know about loons is that they actually can't take off from land. They need to have a pretty big area of water in which to sort of run on and then take flight. So what was happening this morning, what we presume, often loons will see roadways like this long stretch of road between Sept and Happy Valley Goose Bay, and I think assume that it's a body of water, and particularly in the morning when it's looking glistening and wet. And so likely this loon came down thinking that it was landing on water and then just couldn't take off again. So loons' legs are actually pretty far back on their body, and they do not have an easy time walking on land. They nest kind of along the shore, so they can kind of swim up and kind of hobble out and then slide back into the water, but they don't walk around. And so that's a really important thing to know, because this bird was actually not injured. This bird was actually completely healthy, but was just feeling a lot of stress because it wasn't able to kind of take flight. And what you can do, if any of the listeners out there sort of happen upon a similar situation with a loon, and this goes for many different birds, but if you cover their eyes, so they're in the dark, they really, really calm down. And this bird was really stressed, so running at us and all of that. And you have to be really cautious these days too, because as you said, avian flu is really on the rise. So any of the listeners that sort of come across something like this, I think it's important to sort of protect your arms and everything. But once a bird is covered and sort of held, and they're in the dark, that bird is really not going to fight. So what we did is we took an old sheet and we covered its eyes, and I sort of picked it up along its body, and it was totally relaxed, and put it in a box. And then we drove it just down the hill to Little Lake, which is likely where it came from. And that's where we were able to release it.
And then you did share, photos and a video online on social media of this rescue, and also a lot of what you mentioned just then, a lot of those kind of facts that I never knew about loons before. It was kind of like you were giving us a little lesson about loons, not unlike what your father often does. What made you want to put that information out there?
I think that it's really important that when we come upon wild animals to just have some awareness, and that we actually have a lot more power and compassion when we're informed of sort of what's happening. And I think through the history of my own sort of life and that of my siblings, we were exposed to a lot of wild birds as we grew up, and we cared for a lot of them and nursed a lot of them back to health. So I think we have, some of that knowledge just kind of ingrained in us.
Well, Joya Montevecchi, I really appreciate you telling us about that, and so fortunate that you came across that loon when you did, and that you had the knowledge to know what to do in that situation. Thank you so much for telling us all about it.
Thank you so much, Carolyn.
When people know she's going to come Labrador, everybody will work hard. Everybody work together.
Innu elder Elizabeth Panashaway still remembers when the Queen walked into her tent during a special visit back in the 1990s. That's ahead. Prime Minister is calling it horrific, saying it's a story that illustrates the strain on the country's healthcare systems. An alleged sexual assault victim was turned away from a New Brunswick emergency room last month, told to return the following day because there were no trained nurses available to see her. Justin Trudeau was in New Brunswick earlier today and had this to say.
It's horrific. It's unacceptable that a survivor be faced with that kind of response. We know how challenging it is in some cases to deal with institutions, whether it's hospitals or police, after that kind of violence. And my heart goes out to her and to the entire community that's supporting her. As difficult as that story was to hear yesterday, we know that there are stories like it happening all across the country of people not getting the service and the support that they so deeply need from people who would like to be giving it but are stressed and stretched too thin in our medical systems across the country.
Now, Trudeau says more support is needed for frontline staff. He says money is part of the solution, but it's not the only part. Now, the New Brunswick Health Authority admits it failed the 26-year-old woman when she was turned away from the ER after asking for a sexual assault exam. That woman spoke with CBC News about her experience, and we're going to play some of that interview for you now. But first, a warning, this story does deal with an account of an assault, and some will find the details distressing.
So I guess I was just feeling like I was being asked to sit in that experience. Like I could smell him on me, like, and to just have to not be able to do anything about that, or even to stay at the hospital, like where it was safe. Like, not that my house wasn't safe, but I was surprised, I guess, that they didn't even like offer me a safe place to stay and in the in-between. But so yeah, I guess I just really wanted to have it feel like it was over with, and being asked to wait until tomorrow was like asking to keep sitting with that experience for 12 more hours.
Now, the head of that province's health authority says it's unacceptable that ER staff turned the woman away. In New Brunswick, the SANE program has been created to get victims of sexual violence the help they need as quickly as possible. It stands for the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner Program. But even with that, advocates say the system failed her.
This is certainly a situation that we don't want to see happen, that it's extremely difficult for the individual who's very courageous, and it takes a lot of courage to come forward and to seek support and to seek help. And it's unfortunate that they weren't seen immediately.
And this is a story that's making waves right across the country right now, and you can read more about it on our website, cbc.ca/NL. This Monday has been declared a federal and provincial holiday in honor of Queen Elizabeth's funeral. This week, we're continuing to mark the Queen's legacy, including some of her past visits to this province. Innu Elder Elizabeth Panashaway says she was happy to share her culture with the Queen during a visit to Sheshatshiu in 1997. She recently shared those memories with Here and Now's Ariana Kelland.
I turned on my phone, and my friend, she said to me, "Oh, Queen Elizabeth, she died. Oh my God, she died?" Yeah, she said, yeah. I couldn't believe it. I was very shocked when I heard that.
How special of a moment was that for the community when the Queen came? How special was it?
When people know she's going to come to Labrador, everybody work hard. Everybody work together. Put my tent on the beach, my tent. The young children, I put the old clothes, the hat and all, and I asked old ladies, "Can you use your old dress and hat?" Said yes. Everybody happy. I asked my son Peter. I said, bring Queen Elizabeth inside my tent. "Oh, Mom, I don't think she's gonna come inside." And the queen, she came right inside my tent. Oh my God, I was so happy. I was very, very happy. Oh my. And then she shake the hands, all the children, the young children, shake hands. And then he went around my tent, shake hands with old people. She looks like very happy. Maybe he think, oh, that's the Innu people life. Tent, stove, people, dress, everything. Maybe she's very surprised with what she see inside my tent.
Before she came to visit, I guess you would have seen her on television a lot.
Yeah.
So did you like her before she came here?
When I was young, always I watching. Every time when I see her on the picture and a book, sometimes a book, a story, pictures, I gotta buy. Even expensive, no, I wanna buy. I love the pictures, all this family, and then what she did when he was young. Queen Elizabeth always nice to the people, always smile. Labrador people, Inuit, everybody. She's very happy when she see him. Yeah.
The Queen's coffin has arrived at Buckingham Palace after a flight from Scotland. Tomorrow, a procession will escort the Queen to Westminster Hall to lie in state. And members of the public will have a chance to view the coffin before the state funeral on Monday. The CBC's Thomas Dagler reports on today's events from London.
One last time, Scots lined the roads to say goodbye as the Queen made her final trip home. Elizabeth's coffin draped in the royal banner of Scotland, with her family watching, and Princess Anne there to accompany the coffin. The band of the Royal Regiment of Scotland played a final rendition of God Save the Queen before the plane took off bound for London. In the British capital, the Yarwood family came early, a chance to bow their heads once the hearse would pass by.
I never saw the Queen in real life, so be able to pay our last respects to her, I think that's most important.
In Northern Ireland, a region divided over whether the British monarch should be head of state, Charles and Camilla arrived for the first time in their new roles.
It really means a lot to welcome the new king, to sympathise with him on the death of his mother.
The monarch met with political leaders, including Michelle O'Neill from the nationalist party Sinn Féin, with historical ties to the Irish Republican Army.
Played a great role here in terms of reconciliation and building our peace, so it's the end of an era for sure.
The king later reflecting on years of sectarian violence and his mother's concern.
She never ceased to pray for the best of times for this place and its people.
At a Royal Air Force base in London, the plane carrying Elizabeth's coffin touched down, beginning a carefully choreographed journey through the capital, where the Queen will lie in state until her funeral next Monday. All along the route, signs of emotion on a gloomy night, as Londoners got their first chance to say their final goodbye. Tonight, the coffin arrived at Buckingham Palace, Elizabeth's best-known home, where she'll rest one last night. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, London.
We were facing challenges and situations that even a year before, like you could never imagine in your wildest dreams that this would be upon us.
Coming up, Chrissy Holmes speaks with author Craig Dowden about his new book, A Time to Lead.
There's a new book coming out this week from a Newfoundland author, researcher, and executive coach that will very likely make the bestseller list. His last book did, and his latest title is topical and extremely compelling. Not just to the likes of the world's top CEOs who he worked with to compile this research, but for anyone interested in mastering their own world. The book is called A Time to Lead, and author Craig Dowden joins us now to talk about it. Congratulations, Craig, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Chrissy. Really looking forward to the conversation.
So you're a MUN alumni. I know you got your PhD in psychology there, and you've since been applying that to cracking the code on leadership science for years. But then along came COVID, and things changed, particularly in business. Tell us a little bit about some of the questions that you set out with in compiling this research.
Yeah, it's you set it up so perfectly in terms of, and COVID came along. And so there's just been so many emerging trends in the field of leadership for quite some time, as well as within organizations. Lots of challenges on the horizon. And then when COVID hit, really it put us in a state where we were facing challenges and situations that even a year before, like, you could never imagine in your wildest dreams that this would be upon us. And so now, in particular, every single one of us, leaders included, we're now saying, well, what do we do? How do we figure this out? And so that was really, for me, the primary question that I wanted to explore in terms of putting this book together. What does the latest science and research say in terms of, so what do we need to do in order to really pursue mastery of ourselves and our environments and to be at our best? And then really put that into practice. So to translate those lessons from the research into day-to-day practice.
The power of curiosity is something that that this research body really leans into as well. Where does curiosity come into the business ecosystem, especially, during COVID?
For decades, there's been a growing body of research showing that curiosity fuels our success, fuels our happiness in our personal and our professional lives. Curiosity is around examining our belief system, examining what we think is going to happen in different situations and with different people. And so being insatiably curious, just always open to new information. Now, it doesn't mean I have to agree with it. Doesn't even mean that I have to incorporate it in any way. Just being open to it and looking to understand it. And then when you look at COVID, when so many things about what we are used to, our quote unquote normal way of life, was completely upended. And there's been some powerful research whereby managers, leaders who held on to the frame, again, a mindset of, well, we just got to buckle down and get back to the way things were. Well, they didn't perform as well. They were much more stressed. They had teams that were much more stressed and engaged in problem behaviors and underperformance because, well, we're holding on to something versus saying, let's be curious. What possibilities exist? So as a great example, you mentioned the CEOs. Many that I've spoken with throughout the pandemic were saying, before, I would just jump on a plane to Vancouver and not even think about it. And I'd be missing dinners with my family and time with my community. And now I'm being more thoughtful. I'm being more curious. Okay, is this a meeting I need to jump on a plane and go for? And being more selective about when I do that. And so once again, having a mindset of curiosity and exploring possibility is not just engaging for us, it also puts us in the maximum position to be successful.
As a researcher, Craig, I'm really curious, after looking so closely at the ultimate stress test, right? COVID on leadership, what did you learn about leadership coming out of this experience?
The need for humanistic leadership, the need to create more human-centered organizations, the need to connect with people on an emotional level, on an authentic level, and truly understanding who they are, what's important to them, how we can best support them, that is now front and center. And you see it when it's not happening. And back to COVID, what are some really key trends we're observing? The Great Resignation and quiet quitting. When you boil that down to its core, it's all around, I don't feel seen and heard as a human being. And I feel that now more than ever, despite the AI revolution we're in and the technological advancements that we hear about every single day, we are all human beings. And so truly connecting with people, that and organizations, leaders, family members, community members who are able to do that, were far more resilient during this time. And that sense of community serves us not just now, also into the future.
Craig, it's been a fascinating chat. Thanks so much for your time. And listen, best of luck this week with the book launch.
Thank you. The pleasure was all mine. Always enjoy speaking with you, and a special opportunity to connect with Newfoundland audiences, and really appreciate your support.
Turning our attention now to international news, the rate of inflation in the United States has slowed for the second month in a row. August inflation came in at 8.3%, down from 8.5% in July. Now, the drop was driven by lower gas prices and cheaper used cars. However, many other items rose in price, including groceries, utilities, and rent, indicating inflation remains persistent. U.S. core inflation also increased more than expected. Core inflation does not include the cost of volatile goods like food and fuel in the calculation. Inflation continues to run well above the target rate of 2%. It's expected the U.S. Central Bank will impose another sharp interest rate hike next week. Well, this next story gives some insight into what's swimming in our Atlantic waters. The victim of a great white shark attack was hauled aboard a fishing boat just off Halifax late last month. And as David Pate reports, the victim was another shark.
This 2-meter-long blue shark was caught by Dalhousie scientists who wanted to tag it. Then they noticed a big bite mark.
When this shark came up onto the deck, it became very apparent almost immediately that there was a big wound on the back.
Bangley asked marine biologist and shark expert Chris Harvey-Clark to examine the wound.
It had absolutely classic characteristic bites of a large white shark on it. So I was able to do accurate measurements of that shark bite down to about 1 millimeter, and got a shark that was somewhere between 4.0 and 4.4 meters in length. So it was a good sized shark. You wouldn't want to bump into this shark on a dark night, put it that way.
There's a perception that we're seeing more sharks in our waters thanks to tagging programs and shark tracker apps. But no one really knows how many are out there, which is why biologists head out on boats to catch and tag them.
We don't know when they mature and how old they get. We don't know for a lot of species where they mature, when they mature, how many offspring they get. So it's kind of, we are at the beginning of a lot of those questions.
The bite on the captured blue shark was likely only a few hours old, but biologist Charles Bangley says sharks are remarkably resilient.
They heal from wounds like that very, very quickly. I would say by this time next year, you'd have some nice scarring on that shark from that bite, but it would not be anywhere near those big open wounds that you saw in the photograph.
Resilient or not, the wounded shark was rejected for the tagging program. The researchers felt it had gone through enough. It was dropped back into the ocean. David Pate, CBC News, Halifax.
A church in Halifax has taken a unique approach to encouraging greater environmental awareness. It offered a blessing of the bicycles. As part of a Sunday service last weekend, about a dozen parishioners brought their bikes, e-bikes, and scooters to the First Baptist Church for the blessing. Minister Rusty Edwards says it's a way for the church to support a more bike-friendly city. We'll be back with more news after the break. Welcome back. Well, there are plenty of homes with boxes of old photographs. I know I have plenty in my home, and sometimes it can be hard to put names and places to faded shots from years ago. But what if it wasn't a person you were trying to identify? CBC's Yvette Brend tells us how trying to find out about a cartoon elf in a holiday photo turned into an international sleuthing adventure.
It all started with a photo snapped in Ottawa more than 30 years ago. 3 kids in front of a TV. Frozen on the screen behind them was the face of a bearded elf.
My dad just wanted to capture the moment of us, just having some nice family time and I guess that was just on in the background.
Years later, Emily Charette showed the image of her and her siblings to her office. People were intrigued by the elf in the image. When a coworker posted the image, it went viral.
I just thought it was wild.
For 6 years, no one on the internet could place that elf, but the truth was out there somewhere.
For like a week, this was like my full-time job, like keeping up with this stupid thing on Tumblr. And then it kind of faded or whatever. And it would kind of just pop up like every couple of years.
Elfman became an obsession for a lot of people. The New Yorker wrote about the elf. Bloggers posted about him, looking for clues. Was he a Smurf or one of the Littles? Not long after this tweet, saying hundreds of people have seen this image, but nobody knows what it's from. If you recognize this man, please tell me. 2 Wisconsin brothers knew they'd seen that elf before.
Just going through different Google searches, trying to figure out, something with aliens and saving Christmas. And it's like all those search results were nothing close to what I remember.
After so many dead ends, they found him.
There were a couple that I found on eBay for I think I paid maybe $10, $15 for it. And when I got it, showed it to all of our friends and they got a kick out of it.
The night before Christmas.
It was a Questar home video series, and the episode was called The Gift of Light, starring Al Waxman.
No one can replace Santa.
The animator said it aired on CBC in the 90s.
Going back to it, it's like, wow, these were terrible.
Yeah.
Why did we love these so much?
Yeah.
Your evil toys are ready to be delivered.
But maybe it was about the journey back to childhood memories shared by many.
That was my main hope when I saw that. It was like some random family that just had this weird memory as kids, and it makes me so happy that I was at least able to give them some closure on that and finally they could finally watch it, even if they don't care about the cartoon anymore. Just the fact that now they know what it is.
Yvette Brend, CBC News, Vancouver.
Wow, the power of nostalgia. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that for sure. Well, that's it for us this evening. Thank you so much for spending part of your night with us. I hope you can join us again tomorrow. Good night.